Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started. Welcome tonight. My name is Peter Wink. I'm your co-host for the evening. Welcome.
Whoa, Peter bumped out. Okay, you're back.
Okay, let's try this again.
Yes.
No problem. Well, what I was saying was, before the technology cut me off here, was that we have a really cool event coming up on Thursday, February 27th at 8 p.m. Central Time. That's Thursday, February 27th at 8 p.m. Central Time. That's 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. It's called How to Develop Your Intuitive Faculty in Your Psychic Powers. I'm not going to go into a whole ton about what's going to be on this call, but we're going to talk all about the intuition and building your psychic abilities. So for anyone who wants to learn how to read people, how to do predictions, how to cold read, soft read, warm read people, it's going to be a real interesting evening. You're going to learn about how to read people's body language and facial expressions. You're going to learn how to feel and read energy. Those are just a few of the things. All of you are going to get more information on this, but I want everybody to just save the date really quick. Again, February 27th, 8 p.m. Central Time. It's a teleseminar. So you could be in your car, you can be in your office, you can be anywhere that you can dial in. It's not like tonight where it's a webinar, it's a teleseminar. So you can be anywhere. I'm going to give you real quick the call-in information. So if you have a pen or pencil ready and some paper, take this number down. It's 805-399-1200, 805-399-1200. And the code is 982755. So you need an access code of 982755. So that's 805-399-1200, access code 982755. It's called How to Develop Your Intuitive Faculty and Your Psychic Powers. If you ever wondered how fortune tellers, for instance, do it, Howard is going to teach you how to really do this. Now, most fortune tellers and people like that are phony. We know that as psychics. But we all have a psychic and intuitive ability. We have that sixth sense. We have that instinct. It's what we train in the IBMS Master Society. And Howard's going to blow it out, and he's going to make it a lot of fun. It's going to be about an hour-long teleseminar. Everybody's invited, so invite your friends, neighbors, coworkers, your boss, your family, everyone you know, your colleagues. It's going to be a really cool evening. So mark that down, February 27th, 8 p.m. Central Time, How to Develop Your Intuitive Faculty and Psychic Abilities. Now, really quick, I want to introduce the man of the hour tonight who's going to teach you all about the secrets to life creation. He's a good friend of mine, and for many of you who don't know him, he's the world's fastest reader, Guinness World Records certified, and he's read tens of thousands of books. He's been the e-reader spokesperson with Peyton Manning and Justin Timberlake. He's been on Cavuto, I think 1,100 different TV shows, and newspapers have written about him. I mean, it's just an incredible biography. But the main thing tonight, before he comes out here, to realize is that there's more to life than we know. And Howard, being the speed reader and the learner and educator, and he's just, his mind's like a sponge, he went out on a quest to figure out he looked at all these religions and all these different theories about how we came to be. And he did this huge, widespread research, and he interviewed people all over the world. And he just wanted to find out what was the truth. Everybody can't be wrong and everybody can't be right. What is the truth? And what he did was he found the common denominators, and that's what you're here to learn tonight. So without further ado, I know we can't hear you right now, but please give a warm welcome, maybe a little hand little hand clapping from my good friend, the man of the hour, Howard Stephen Berg. Take it away, Howard.
Thanks so much. I actually put up a link. If you didn't get all the information Peter gave you, you could go to fromhoward.com/intuitive. And that'll also provide you with the information that you need for the February event. Right now we have a January event, so I'm going to get right to it. Okay. So for those of you who don't know me, I see a lot of familiar faces. I don't have time to say hello to everybody, but I am saying hello. This is me on Cavuto reading the healthcare bill in 50 minutes. I got to know Neil pretty well. Been on about 1,100 shows. And this is really what it was about. I was always interested in what makes something alive. I started off studying biology, and in my junior year I got interested in the brain and consciousness and how we think and understand and learn. So I did a 4-year psychology program in my senior year by taking 6 science courses at the same time. And I also had 3 part-time jobs. I worked 18 hours a week. I don't recommend doing that. I was young, but I did do it. And then the quest began. I learned a lot about Carl Jung. And Carl Jung was very interested in symbols and the collective unconscious. And it just seemed there had to be more to consciousness and life than just the neurons that we were studying in the lab. So after college, a lot of people aren't familiar with what I did. I studied the fourth way. My I Ching teacher was actually very famous. If you remember the first Hawaii 5-0, the original one with Jack Lord, his nemesis was Kai Di. He was Wolfat. And Kai Di was actually my I Ching teacher. He was in New York, and I got to be friends with him. He was a Taoist priest, and he taught me the I Ching. I studied all the 7 branches of yoga. I was working with Yogi Bhajan. I did TM in my junior year of college. I've been meditating now for almost 40 years every day. My Cabala teacher was in the Golden Dawn, which was one of the most famous esoteric groups in history. She was actually in the group in England and gave me some of the unpublished material. I studied the tarot with Rala Nordic, who was a Druid high priestess. I became a professional astrologer. I actually was on over 200 shows doing horoscope readings, and I got to understand why and how it works, which I'll be talking about tonight. I studied numerology and theosophy and theurgy and a bunch of other things, and always with the desire to relate it back to science. I don't believe you can have 2 existences, a scientific one and a metaphysical one. The 2 have to connect. And what I want to do tonight is talk about some of those connections. The key to understanding is there's different kinds of logic. Most of us use one of these 2, deductive and inductive. Deductive logic is how scientists work. They take little pieces and they deduce what the big thing probably means. Inductive is done more by religious groups, philosophers like Plato. In Plato's Republic, he tried to determine what was justice. And he looked at the state and justice in the state to understand justice in the individual. So the inductive reasoning is you look at the big picture and you deduce what the small picture must be based on it. It's the complete opposite. So with deductive, small pieces infer the big picture, and that's science. And with inductive, big picture infers the details, like Plato did in the Republic. Very different kinds of thinking. But if you really want to find truth, there's a third option, the relativistic option. This is the logic that reveals the deep and hidden meaning of life. It's needing for understanding something infinite like God, something that can and not be true at the same time, is not a contradiction. This is actually a picture from a quantum physics book. And an experiment was done. This was a very, very important experiment. They shone a light through a single slit. And when you shine a light through a single slit in a closed box, what you're seeing back is a little bit of light hitting the back, which is what you'd expect. And you'd expect if you made 2 slits, you'd see twice as much light. But that isn't what happens. When you make 2 slits, it makes bands like you're seeing here in the picture. The first picture on the top is the fingerprint of a particle. The fingerprint on the second picture is the fingerprint of a wave. So by changing the number of slits that you put in this little piece of cardboard, you changed light from appearing like a particle into appearing like a wave. Both things are totally the opposite. And so here we have something that is and isn't at the same time, and it's actually a part of physics. And what physicists did is they deduced that how you ran your experiment changed the physical property of the light. Very profound. Remember, this is not metaphysics. This is actually quantum physics. Another interesting story in quantum physics, I'm trying to integrate science and metaphysics tonight, is this concept called Schrodinger's cat. Now, some of you may be familiar with it, but it's quite significant. Here's the thought experiment. There's a cat in a box. And inside the box, there's a radioactive source, but it's not very radioactive. There's also a bottle of poison. If an internal monitor detects radiation, it'll smash the bottle and kill the cat. So the question right now is the cat alive or dead? And that seems like a pretty straightforward question. It's either alive or dead. But here's the interesting thing. It's both. In quantum mechanics, the cat in the box, because we haven't measured it, we haven't opened the box and actually seen if it's alive or dead. It could be either or. But according to quantum theory, the cat is alive and the cat is dead at the same time. It's both. Now, this is a type of thinking that is quite distinct from that deductive and inductive thinking we're used to. I'm here, you're there. The light's on, the light's off. Quantum thinking, relativistic thinking, allows us to look at something in two very different ways simultaneously, and both are true. A good example would be if you think of the Earth, it's very big compared to us. But if you look at the Earth compared to the universe, it's very small. So is the Earth big or small? It all depends upon how you're looking at it. Alina, are you having problems hearing me? I'm seeing some people. Oh, the sound is good? Okay. Okay. Just checking. I'm looking at some of your messages. Now, to understand God, it's this relativistic type of thinking that lets us probe the deeper meaning. In fact, I think one of the problems is when people ask a question, is there a God? They're asking the wrong question. The real question we should be asking is the universe conscious or unconscious? Is the universe a thinking, conscious entity, or is it just there? Like what's his name in England? The black hole guy, Hawking. Hawking seems to think it's a big machine, and it could be. So we're going to be looking at all that tonight. The real question often is, what is truth? And if you read your Bible, you know, that was a big question that was in the New Testament. What is truth? And this is really quite interesting because there's two kinds of fundamental truths. The two kinds of truths were represented by two of the most brilliant minds who ever lived, Kant and Hegel. Kant is often considered to have been the most brilliant man who ever lived. I've read in several books that his IQ was the highest IQ in history. Hegel was also a brilliant man and co-discovered calculus with Isaac Newton. So these are pretty smart people. And their perception is, Kant said there is truth. Truth is truth, even if you don't know it. Hegel said, no, we only know what we know. So our perception of reality is what creates truth. So in Hegel's world, if a tree falls in the wood and no one hears it, it didn't fall because you don't know about it. And if you don't know about it, it didn't really happen. In Kant's world, if a tree falls in the wood and no one hears it, it still fell in the woods. You just don't have an awareness that the event took place. So which one is right? Well, let's look at those two different philosophies empirically, and we'll see that it's quite important because what I'm really looking at right now is thinking and how we look at things and perceive things and judge things based on thinking. In Hegel's world, let's just take an example. Adolf Hitler saves a young Jewish kid from drowning, And you watch this event from the shore and say, what a nice man, but you don't see him put the kid in the concentration camp. So in Hegel's world, he's ethical. Kant would say, no, it was the intent that really had more to do with it. So if you see a man go out to try to save the same boy who's a poor swimmer, and because he's a poor swimmer, the boy drowns, you'd say he just killed the boy, when in fact he was trying to save him. So perception versus reality. And actually this has a lot to do with the world we live in. If I was to ask you, if you were to put ice into a hot beverage, what happens? 99% of you, probably more, would say putting ice into a hot beverage, ice cools the beverage off, correct? But that isn't what happens. Ice does not cool the beverage off. That's a perceptual illusion. What actually happens is, if you can picture water molecules as beads, they're bouncing off each other. The beads are moving faster. All temperature is motion, moving very quickly. So if you move them fast enough, they evaporate as steam. They bounce out of the container. So hot water is bouncing around in the container very quickly. Ice is very slow-moving water. And water molecules are almost like a magnet. There's a north pole and a south pole, a positive and a negative. But until they move very, very slowly, they don't connect into a solid. Well, cold ice is moving so slowly that the molecules are able to attract. When you put ice into a hot beverage, instead of the ice cooling the heated beverage down, this is what's happening. The heated beverage, where the molecules are bouncing rapidly, transfer their energy to the ice and melt it. And by melting the ice, they're releasing some of the heat energy. They're slowing down by bouncing into the ice, transferring their energy to the ice. The ice melts, and the beverage cools down because it heated up the ice. Quite different than the reality that we're used to. And I say this to you because in understanding God and these higher principles, a lot of things we take for granted and look at and believe are actually illusions. And I wanted to go into some of that now. So in the actual reality, heat is the motion of the molecules. The hot liquid has the molecules bouncing. The ice has the frozen molecules. The liquid gives up its energy, heats the ice and breaks down. The energy melts the ice, and the loss of that energy is what actually cools off the liquid. So let's get started. The first thing we want to learn is a little about being intuitive, and I'm going to be covering a lot more of that in February. The unconscious brain is actually a very big article in this month's Scientific American, and so much of our mind lies below the surface. Most of the decisions you make are made before you become conscious of making the decision. They're actually done on the unconscious level. And the way the unconscious works, it doesn't use words. It uses feelings, senses. You ever had that sensation there's something you need to do and you don't know what it is, but it's important? That's the unconscious. And because the unconscious doesn't work with words, but with emotion, we need to have a way of translating that emotional language of the unconscious to the conscious. This unconscious that enables us to become aware of these bigger issues, these intuitive issues, the concepts of God, for example. So what I normally do is I'll speed read 10 books. I could do it in 3 hours. A normal person taking my course could probably read 2 or 3 books in 3 or 4 hours. I had an 84-year-old do 3 books in 3 hours. So it's realistic. So first I find the books that have the information that has the solution I'm looking for. I don't know the solution, but I know these books have the data that will make that solution happen. The second thing you do is you ask a question that has an emotionally significant answer. Think of the old children's game of hot and cold. If you're getting closer, it's warm. If you're getting further away, it's cold. Well, just like hot and cold, we use the emotion. So if I ask a question, if you said, Howard, do I need a root canal? And it says you need 10 root canals. How would you feel if I said yes? You'd probably feel very badly because nobody likes root canals except the dentist. If you asked me, Howard, did I win Powerball? And I said, yes, you won $68 million. How would you feel? pretty good because you won $68 million. And so that was an emotional, significant answer. So what you do is you ask a question, you feel the answer. If the answer was yes to your question, should you be feeling good or should you be feeling bad? And then reflect, how do you feel? Good or bad? And based on how you're feeling right now, you're able to determine what your unconscious is trying to tell you. Yes or no? Yes or no? Will you get it correct all the time? No. But the more you do this, the better you get at it, the more accurate your information becomes. You make fewer and fewer mistakes, and you make more and more right decisions. And that's where a lot of these tools like astrology and tarot come in. These symbols create emotional states that you can feel. And learning to feel, I believe the real information isn't coming from a card or a horoscope or any of that. It's coming from your brain. And what it's doing is these symbols are activating a part of your brain that normally is latent and doesn't get used very much. And so a lot of what I've learned is how to use these symbol systems like Carl Jung was teaching in his books, using these symbol systems to be able to translate the language of the unconscious. And because it's the unconscious that allows us to connect to God, we're able to even accomplish things that under normal conditions would seem impossible. This is the limbic system. The limbic system is in the middle of your brain. It's the emotional region of your brain. It's the seat of all the emotions. And it's buried deep inside the brain. For many, many years, I taught people, maybe 30 years, that I believed that the source of the intuition, the ability for people to be creative and insightful, to create epiphanies, to see answers to problems that were unanswerable, was coming from that region of the brain. But I didn't have access to the equipment in the lab like an MRI or a PET scan, actually a PET scan. They actually did a study about a year ago, which I read about in a science journal. They took musicians and wired them up to scan the part of the brain that was active while they were composing original music, using their ability to be creative. And sure enough, what part of the brain lit up like a Christmas tree? The limbic system, the part of the brain that I've been teaching for years, was associated with intuition and creativity. So they've actually vindicated my hypothesis in the lab. The language of the unconscious is feelings, emotions, symbols, and dreams. And those of you who have studied psychology will be very familiar with the last two, the symbols and dreams. Both Jung and Freud and many of the early psychologists placed a great deal of significance on symbols and dreams as a way of the unconscious telling us what was going on in a way that we could understand. I'm going to begin now. This is actually an important symbol. And I want to show you how something as simple as a circle with a point in the middle could reveal a hidden cosmic truth. When you study the reading program that I teach these three levels of meaning: the literal, the implied, and the inferential. And that's actually taught in graduate classes when you're learning to teach reading. Literal information is what you see. So if I asked you right now, what do you see? You would tell me you see a circle with a dot in the middle. I'd like you to imagine that dot as being very, very, very tiny. I had to make it big enough so you could perceive it. But in theory, I'd like it to be a millionth the size of a period. Really, really tiny. So when you look at this symbol, the first thing you see literally is a circle with a dot in the middle. And you'd be correct. On the second level, this is actually an astronomical symbol. It's the universal symbol in astronomy for the sun. Because astronomy and astrology had similar origins, it's also the astrological symbol for the sun. Now we're starting to see some interesting things. The sun in astrology represents the self, the ego, the sense I am. Ego in Latin means I am. When Moses was on top of the mountain and God revealed his name, he said his name was Echeye. Echeye. And Echeye literally translates to I am that I am. And so the word ego means I am. The point at the center of the circle is your soul. It's your universal self that's connected to all things. It's the God self within. So within everyone is this tiny point of spirit that connects to all other people. The circle represents the boundary between the self that's inside the white part and the outside, the not self, everyone else. So what this symbol says is that within everyone is this one thing, and everyone appears to be different, but actually we're one thing that looks different. So there's only one thing here tonight talking to itself. Although we all perceive our own identity and existence as being separate from one another, what this symbol is telling us is we're really one being, the spirit that appears to be different and separate, but it's really a singularity, and it's both one thing and separate at the same time. Now do you see why I was talking about that type of thinking and logic very early on in tonight's discussion, so I could enter into some more meaningful discourse on the symbols and things we're about to look at. So we see the circle with a point. It's the astronomy and astrology. It's the hidden meaning of life. It all depends on how we look at it. In a very real sense, the truth has been hidden in plain sight. The meaning of life is in plain sight. What I think happened, this is my belief, what we do with truth is usually we make a weapon. The first thing they did when they discovered how to split the atom is they blew something up. They didn't work on making energy for peace. They didn't work on cures for cancer. They blew people up. So here's the dilemma you have. You're God. You want to hide the truth in plain sight so it will never be lost and absolutely no one will look at it. How could you do that? You give a piece of the truth to the Jews and another piece to the Christians and another piece to the Muslims and another piece to the Taoists and another piece to the Hindus and so on. Everybody knows that their truth is true and nobody else's truth can be true because it isn't your truth. So now everyone holds on to their piece of the truth. They would die to protect that truth. They would die for their beliefs. In fact, Christians died in the arena in the early Christian days to protect their beliefs. They would rather die than betray their beliefs. And so have Jews and Muslims and Hindus died for their beliefs. So everyone is willing to protect their belief system with their lives and won't look at anyone else's piece because it's not yours, it can't be right. So now you've hidden the truth in plain sight. I want to show you something that's going to confuse you on purpose. It's going to look like a bunny trail, but I'm going to show you the type of thinking that's needed for understanding deeper truth. And I'm going to bring three very complex things that seem very different and distinct together into a single outcome. Watch as my brain makes the leap for you. First, I'll give you some data, then we'll integrate it, and then we'll draw insights from it. And the reason I'm doing this is how spiritual truths are discerned as well. I'm starting with something simpler because understanding the meaning of life and the purpose of God and existence is quite profound. So if we could start with something a little more down to earth and more simple, it will make it much easier for us to move into something deeper, which we'll be doing as well tonight. The first concept, this is a scientific concept called quantum entanglement. It's extremely important. Right now, physicists are trying to work on a quantum entanglement model for computers. They're getting close. They're about 10, 15 years away. It will increase the speed of computers so that a computer in a few seconds could perform what a supercomputer today would take 300 years to do. This is literal. This is not a theory or abstract. This is, I'm telling you, a literal scientific truth. Here's what quantum entanglement is about. In quantum entanglement, two electrons become entangled. They become related as if they were tied at the hip. They're not, but they act as if they were connected. Even if you separate these two particles by the entire distance of the universe, they'll react in an instant if something happens at one end, even at extremely high distances. So one particle is spinning counterclockwise and one is spinning clockwise. if you could deflect the clockwise particle and make it go counterclockwise instantly, the opposite particle that's connected will reverse its spin, no matter how far apart they are, instantly. That's a pretty profound thing. And this has been proven. This is not a theory. This is actual science. So two atomic-sized particles become linked, and they act, so one is going to the left and one is going to the right. They're actually linked in space and time, no matter how far apart they become. Now, here's what gets interesting. Bird migration. We all know birds can migrate. Biologists have discovered that there's quantum entanglement in the brain of a bird that's enabling it to migrate. This is a scientific fact, not a theory. And photosynthesis, which all life on the planet is dependent upon, the ability of leaves to turn light into sugar and protein, uses quantum entanglement. This is a fact, not a theory. That was the first concept I wanted to introduce you to. Now I'm going to go to concept number 2, and then concept number 3, and then form a synthesis of the 3 concepts that'll be quite interesting. How do nerves transmit information from one to the other? The old model, the model I learned when I was in college, is that a stimulus occurs on one end of the nerve, and on the other end, the nerve touches on another nerve and stimulates it to take an action, to trigger a nerve impulse. That was the traditional model of nervous transmission until they were able to do brain scans. And then they discovered something interesting. When you look at this picture, you're noticing that several regions of the brain are lit up and others are not as brightly lit. What they discovered is the brain reacts in different areas, even without neural connection occurring from point A to point B. There is a belief, and they're actually studying this now. It hasn't been proven, but the belief is right now that the brain is a quantum computer. And information from some of these lit areas is being transmitted to other areas of the same color through a quantum entanglement. And this is what they're actually studying right now. It's on the cutting edge of neurophysiology. So the brain might be a quantum computer. Very interesting. The third concept I want to introduce is called chimeric cells. This is also not a theory. Did you know that there are cells in your body that don't come from you? For many, many years, we always thought that the placenta only allowed nutrition to pass across. Now we know that cells from the mother are crossing over into the body of the embryo in the womb. Some of the mother's tissues become part of your body. So your kidneys have some mother cells in them. Your brain has some cells from your mother. And how do they know this? They now know that some very serious diseases are caused by these cells. These autoimmune disorders like multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, some of these are being triggered by these chimeric cells that don't belong in your body but came from a parent. In fact, if you have brothers and sisters, the second child will not only have some of the mother's cells, but some of the child's cells cross over to the mother. And when the second child is in gestation in the womb, some of their sibling cells will cross over into them. So we actually have cells in our body from both our parents and our older brothers and sisters. By the way, they're also looking at these cells as something positive. Sometimes chimeric cells can cure diseases. Some people have diabetes, but because their mother's cells can produce insulin and they're in their pancreas, those cells are making the insulin that's keeping them alive, not their own. So it's kind of interesting. Again, this is not theory. This is proven. Now we're going to tie all 3 concepts together. Watch what happens. We all know that mothers have an instinct about their children. Some of you are moms. You just know something's not right. Let's think. If you have some of the cells from your mother in your brain, and she has some of the cells from you in her brain, And the cells in her brain and the cells in your brain are linked by quantum entanglement. The information that's going on inside your head becomes conscious inside of your mother's head because of the chimeric cells that are in her brain, and it explains mother's intuition as a physiological process, that there's actually a physical connection between the mind of the mother and the children because of these cells and quantum entanglement. Pretty interesting, isn't it? Quite different than what you'd normally expect. I just wanted you to see that. Now here's where we go into psychic. We all started from the matter in the cosmic dust cloud. Some of that matter is entangled. What if the entangled matter in your brain is connected to information in another part of the universe, and that's how you're becoming aware of things because of this entanglement principle? Now stop. Squeeze your right ear and say, I feel creative. And you will. What I've done is I've put you in a state of hyper creativity. We're looking at some very complicated, very unusual scenarios and connected them, and it was a different way of thinking than how are the Mets, how are the Cowboys, how are the Broncos. That's a different kind of thinking. And when you're in that state, I had you squeeze your right ear, and that will become a stimulus response link. Every time you're feeling intuitive in the future, when you're having an epiphany, when you're seeing things connect that you couldn't connect before, yes, there's going to be a recording. Squeeze your left ear, your right ear, and say, I feel creative. And then when the day comes, when you need to instantly turn on that creativity, you squeeze the ear, and it'll trigger the state. So we saw the different kinds of logic. Now I want to move into the spiritual realm. I wanted to introduce the thinking process before I went into teaching you something about the Cabala. This symbol that you're seeing in front of you is called the Tree of Life. There are 10 circles. It starts at the top. Keter, Hakma, Bina, Hesed, Gedula, Gebora, Tiferet, Netzach, Chad, Yesod, and Malkuth. These are symbolic areas. They represent the different levels of God and Spirit. They're actually the decoder ring for the Bible. There's a secret Bible code, and that code is decoded by understanding the symbols in the Cabala, and it reveals the inferential level of meaning. What we see is the literal words and sometimes the implied, but it's the Kabbalistic studies that allow us to look at those same words and understand that there's a code and go past the surface level of meaning to the deeper meaning. Now I'm going to start doing that tonight. I want to briefly introduce you to these concepts. At the very top of the tree is the Keter, which is called the crown of creation. Above the Keter are 3 negative states of existence. Let's see if I could just draw a line above it. There's 1, 2, 3 negative states of existence. Now imagine for a minute, each of those states is infinite. They are. When you think of infinity, we usually think of infinity as being the biggest that something could be. What if I told you that each of those infinities is bigger than the infinity below it? That's kind of mind-boggling, but it's true. And I'm going to show you what I mean. The 3 infinities are called the Ein, the top line, the Ein Sof, and the Ein Sof And what it means, we're going to start with the Ein Sof, the middle line, because it's the easiest one to understand. The Ein Sof means limitless. That means there's no limit to it. It's boundless, limitless. The Ein Sof which is the lower of the 3 lines, means the limitless light. Light is a dimension. When we're at the level of the Ein Sof, there's neither light nor darkness. At the level of the Ein Sof there's infinite light. So that's more limited than a state which doesn't have light or darkness. It's both. And the Ein sits above the Ein Sof because it's undefinable. Language tends to define things in terms of what they are or what they aren't. I'm me, you're you. You're sitting in your chair, the computer isn't you. We see things in terms of what they are and what they aren't. At the level of the Ein, everything is one. Everything is spirit. Everything has become a singularity. There is no more you and me, this and that. There's only the one. And so language breaks down because language only works when there's a duality, a this and a that, a me and a you. So here we see three different states of infinity. And that's why I started teaching you at the beginning how something can be and not be at the same time. Because as we begin moving on tonight, and I'm going to move you a little bit deeper as we go along to the meaning of life, you're beginning to see why those different states of existence are quite significant. In all Bibles, and I mean all, I was a Buddhist, I was a Sufi. I don't know if you know this, I'm a high priest. I was born as a Kohen. In the Jewish religion, the Kohens were the people who went in the holies of holies, the people who were the priests, the inner sanctum, and they are all direct descendants of Moses' brother Aaron. Now, I'm not the only one. There's quite a few. But if you're a Kohen, that means if you went back enough generations, Moses was your uncle and Aaron was your father, because it's a birthright. So I studied yoga, I was a Sufi, I studied the Tao, I studied a number of different systems. And I was always interested in one thing. What do they have in common? We all know what they're different. Jews don't eat pork, Hindus don't eat beef, Christians for a long time, Catholics for a long time didn't eat fish on Fridays. Of course, that's changed relatively recently, but for millennia, they didn't eat fish on Fridays. So I was looking at how is it the same, and they all have something in common. In the beginning was the Word. So we're going to make this circle. This circle is a unity. It's the singularity at the beginning of the universe that's vibrating. And if you look at the quantum physics model, the Big Bang, it says everything starts as this single point, and this point explodes. So we got this single point, and it explodes. So this one point vibrating creates what? A wave. So we see here a wave. On the right side, we see a crest, and on the left side, we see a trough. This one point vibrating, remember the word, the people who wrote the Bible were not physicists. They had to use words that encapsulated meaning without having the science. And the closest thing to a wave that you could have used back then would have been the word. And you have a vibration, the single point vibrating creates a two-sided being. On the right, we have a yang, a masculine, an Abba. On the left, we have a feminine, a yin, an Ima. So the one point vibrating creates the word. The word has a masculine side and a feminine side, a crest and a trough. And so this one thing creates three things. Remember that it's a universe. It's all about vibration. It's music, universe. So this one thing is everything, but creates a duality by vibrating. And the three are the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. There's your Trinity. The three are in the one is in the three. The two are together, but one is male and one is female. So we see the Trinity coming out of this word, this vibration, this singularity. And notice it's identical to the Big Bang model, where everything starts off as a singularity that blows up and forms a vibration. I wanted to share with you the secret of Jesus' name. I know many of you have studied Bible, and I promise you, you've never heard this, but it's completely true. In Hebrew, God got many names. One of his names is Yahweh. Yahweh. And it's in Hebrew, the letters that create the word Yahweh are Yad, He, Vav, and He final. He final is a He that falls at the end of a word. So Yad, He, Vav, He, final. That was the Hebrew, and it was Yahweh with a Y. When the Hebrew Bible was translated into the Greeks changed the Y into a J. And so we went from Yahweh to Jehovah, and that's where the word Jehovah came from. It's the Greek translation of the word Yahweh. Now here's where it gets interesting. Jesus' name is actually a magic word. Jesus' name is Yad He Shin Vav He final. Notice it's God's name with the Shin placed in the middle. The Hebrew letter Shin looks like a flame, like a menorah with 3 candles, and there's like 3 burning wicks. It's the Trinity, literally. It's a pictograph of the Trinity, and so you have Yad He Shin in the middle, which represents the Christ, Vav He final. And so Jesus' name is built out of the Word of God, and so we have Yeshua. In Hebrew, Jesus' name was Yeshua, Yeshua ben Joseph, Yeshua, son of Joseph. And again, when the name was taken from the Hebrew and put into the Greek, the Greeks changed the Y to a J. So we went from Yeshua to Jesus, or Jesus. And that's where the word Jesus came from. So it's actually a magic word. It's an anagram built out of the Word of God with the Trinity placed at its center. Interesting and true. I wanted to also share with you another name that's in the Bible, Mary, and the derivation of Mary's name. In the Hindu, Maya means illusion. On the moon, there are oceans. They're called mares. They're illusionary oceans. There are no oceans on the moon, but they're called mares. The dark pits that you see, we know they're pits. The ancients thought they were oceans. They called them mare. It comes from the word Maya, illusion. And so Mary is a derivation of mare, and it means mother of illusion. And why is that? When we looked at those two, the Kether, the Hakma, and the Bina, the feminine Mary represents the pole of form. The female gives birth to form. So if we look at the circle at the very top of the tree, it's a unity. All things are one. There's no duality. All consciousness is one. If you look at Bina, Kether, if you look at Hakma, it's also one, but it's rotating. Think of a sphere rotating. When you get to Bina, it separates. Think of ice water. It's all water, but you have water and you have ice. They separated. And so Mary, the mother of illusion, form, separates the spirit, which is a unified thing, into a dualism of form and not form, this and that. Why is that important? Because that allows consciousness to take place. Our consciousness is dualistic. We see things as this and that. And it's this illusion that we're separate from God, that God is somewhere out there and we're somewhere here, that is at the root of Maya, the separateness, that all things are different when actually all things are one thing that appear different, the illusion. And so in the Bible, in the garden, it's the female that creates wisdom. She eats from the apple and is able to make a decision. So that creates will. Once you have will, you become godlike. You can decide to do this or that. You have choice. And will is one of the higher properties of God. So by the female principle, creating consciousness, by creating duality, it also creates this godlike state where we can make decisions and choices that otherwise would not be possible. So it's symbolized in the fall. So I thought what I would do now is move on to some more practical work where you could begin to find out who you are, what your purpose is, and give you some tools to work with. I wanted to introduce the concepts first so you can get the big picture. And now I want to give you some practical techniques to continue your work. Ramana Maharishi was one of my teachers, and his meditation was quite simple. He would meditate on the mantra, who am I? This is quite interesting, because what you find out is you're not your body. You're not the baby that was in a diaper when you were born. You're not the adolescent. You're not the teenager. Our bodies change throughout life, so we're not the body. then you find out you're not your feelings. Your feelings change from moment to moment. In fact, many times you'll say, I don't like how I'm feeling. If you were the feeling, you wouldn't say, I don't like it. You'd see it as you. We're not our thoughts, because our thoughts change from one moment to the next. So who am I? You're the being at the center, that circle, that dot in the middle, that perceives the thought, that perceives the emotion, that perceives the existence of a body. And by reflecting on this inner circle, and I believe Dr. Caldwell says this a lot too, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Think about it. What he's telling you is very profound, because what you're doing is finding who you are at the center, who you truly are, and not who you appear to be. So we're moving past bodies, emotions, and mind to spirit, which is that point at the center which connects us to all things. There's actually a book that I'll recommend that teaches a lot of this. It's called The Fourth Way by P.D. Ouspensky. I actually got it as a birthday present on my 22nd birthday, which is very symbolic. And what the four ways are, the first way is the way of the faker, and that's spelled F-A-K-I-R. Those are the people in India that would lay on a bed of nails and not feel any pain, or walk on fire or glass and not feel any pain. They've learned to transcend their body. Their body isn't them. They're more than just the form. The second way is the way of the monk. That's the way of the Christian, through love, through surrender, through the Christ. But God's big, God's wise. If I give myself to God, if I love, through love and devotion, I can achieve enlightenment. True. The third way is the way of the yogi, which is the meditator, where the mind is used to contemplate and find truth. The fourth way, which is the way I recommend, is all four at once. You're using the mind to understand that you're not the body, you're not the feelings, you're not the mind, but you're the spirit. And you become conscious of all four levels of existence simultaneously. And you're able to make a distinction between what is and what isn't. And now you're on the path to being able to fulfill your destiny, because you're cutting through the clutter of your feelings, your beliefs, your understanding, and getting to your center where truth really exists. There's a game that's often taught in the fourth way that'll help you accomplish this, and it's called the game of stop. It develops self-awareness. Every once in a while in a day, just stop and look at yourself and reflect on, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you doing? And become aware of what your body, your mind, and your emotions are doing to control you and take away from that center, which is the true self, and make you believe that that feeling, that hurt, that pain, you hurt me, you upset me. No one hurts you, upsets you. You allow yourself to be hurt or upset by reacting to what they do. But that point at the center isn't reacting. It's aware of the reaction or the thought. So it's very important, because the first step in self-mastery is to stop reacting to what other people are doing to you. Doesn't mean you don't care about them or you don't love. It means that you no longer are dependent on others for your happiness and for your ability to achieve your goals. It's coming from that center, that point in the middle. The truth sets you free. So what is truth? That's what Kant and Hegel came in. The truth is, we don't always know the full truth. We only know what we know, but we always look for more. So what we would say is, in the Middle Ages, when people thought the world was flat, they wouldn't ride their boats too far offshore because they were afraid they'd go over the edge of the earth. The earth was still round. There were opportunities for them to go to other places that they weren't able to take advantage of because of their beliefs that were false, their perceptions that were false. How many of the things in your life that are keeping you from achieving your goals, your wishes and your dreams, are because of false perceptions that you believe are true? And just as those people believe they'd go over the edge of the world, you believe by going in a certain direction, you'll go over the edge as well, when in fact, there's a whole universe out there of opportunity that you have right there in front of you. But because of your feelings and beliefs, you're holding yourself back. So you could see why I was covering the topics I did. I want to show you a couple of more tools you can do to develop advanced consciousness, and then tell you about how you could get even more information on this. Breathing. You can actually breathe to develop consciousness. You know, when women are pregnant and they're about to deliver a baby, they do Lamaze. And basically, Lamaze is breathing. By breathing in a certain rhythmic pattern, the pain of childbirth is greatly alleviated. It doesn't go away, but it's alleviated. By learning to control your breath, you can change your state like that. And I'm going to show you a simple yoga exercise for doing that. If you pinch your right nostril and you inhale to a count of 5 on the left, then you pinch them both. You exhale on the right for a count of 5. You wait for 5. You inhale for 5. You pinch. I'm going to do this with you. I'm just giving you the steps. You exhale for 5. You're going to be able to change your state. So we're going to pinch your left nostril and we'll begin. Inhale for 5 for your right nostril. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pinch them both. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pinch them both. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale on the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And pause for 5. So it's in for 5, pause for 5. Out on the other side for 5, pause for 5. In on the other side for 5, pause for 5. It's called alternate nostril breathing, and it changes your emotional state. And when you're done doing this for 3 to 5 minutes, you'll be in a very deeply relaxed state. So gently squeeze your left thumb and go, I feel relaxed. And you'll feel a profound state of relaxation. This is one, when you're in an emergency, when things are frightening you, this is a way to shut it off quickly. And then when you need to, you can squeeze your left thumb gently and the state will come back. Now you can actually use color. Colors also work. The colors that stimulate are pastel blue and pastel green. Pastel blue looks like the sky. Green looks like the meadow. Colors, and those relax. Blue and green are relaxing. Stimulating colors are pastel pink, yellow, and orange. So what you can actually do now is when you're breathing in, if you want to relax, you imagine it's a pastel blue or green. If you want to stimulate, like you're trying to get some work done, you need energy, do the breathing exercise with a pastel orange, yellow, or pink. And now you'll not only be using the alternate nostril technique to balance yourself, but the color will affect your brain profoundly and allow you to alter your state to the one you need to be able to accomplish what you're seeking. If you're trying to do some intense mental work, you stimulate. If you're trying to get away from anxiety or fear or depression, you relax. So you can breathe with the colors. I want you to know I'm going to record this and you can share this with all your friends when you get the recording. Now, I wanted to talk to what I plan on doing is...
I'm going to record this and you can share this with all your friends.
Show you how you can step up to the Magnificent Pathway series. I would like to do a monthly class every month on this topic, a full hour self-development strategies. I'll show you how to do horoscopes and tarot and numerology, to learn the symbol systems, not because you want to be an astrologer or a tarot card reader, but to learn how to use those pictures and symbols to open up the unconscious mind's wealth of data and to be able to tap into that intuition using these pictures and symbols so you become intuitive and become aware of the opportunities that are presenting themselves to you that are right in front of you every day, and you're missing them because we're so sucked into the brain awareness, we don't go to that center where the true power can be found. And you can go at the end of this workshop to fromhoward.com pathways if you're interested, and I will teach you a lesson each month. This was the introductory class. It's the very tip of the iceberg. And each month I'll show you a tool that I've learned from one of the wonderful people that I've been associated with for most of my life, and share with you some of these strategies to help you come to a state of realization. People say, how do you read 80 pages a minute? Because I've studied all these systems. I'm not just using psychology, I'm using spiritual tools to become in a heightened state. Every show I ever did, I meditated for at least 30 to 60 minutes to get in a super focused, concentrated state. I'll teach you how to do that. Peter, would you like to say something?
Hi, I just want to add a couple of things to what Howard just said and explain a little bit more about what Magnificent Pathways is all about, why we're doing this series. You know, I was brainstorming with Howard, and we were thinking about back when we were in college. And we were thinking about the thousands of dollars we spent, tens of thousands of dollars. And actually, I probably spent well over $100,000 on my state school education, my Western Illinois degree. And I was thinking about everything that I took and all my studies and the subjects. And I was thinking back to when I worked at Nightingale Conant and worked with Brian Tracy and Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer and Harvey McKay and Tom Peters. And I was thinking about all of you out there. And I was thinking about, well, how do we get a program that really encapsulate the best of all the information from college, from programs, from all these different diverse areas of education? And we came up with the Magnificent Pathways program. And we decided we're going to make it monthly so we can give you a small dose of different topics so you could fully understand it. So we talked about theologians and religion. We talked about the evolution of man, the different types of societies. We want to talk about the philosophers, the great philosophers of our day. We're going to talk about the great artists, the great inventors, the great geniuses, literature, the best books. And literally, we're going to combine it into a program so monthly you get the education that you need so you understand where we've been from an evolution standpoint, but also to where we are today and how did we get there. And let's think forward. Let's use our creative genius and take all this information, encapsulate it, and figure out how do we move forward with this? What's the next thing? And do a little bit of predicting here. This program is like nothing that's out there. Unlike anything that's out there. There's just nothing like this anywhere. I've been involved in self-development and personal development programs and self-help since 1990. There's no program like this. We are breaking new ground here. So if you're the type of person who's very interested in where we've been in the universe and how it all came together and the truth, not theories, the truth. Howard is a genius at this. He's the world's fastest reader. He's encapsulated thousands of books worth of information. He's also interviewed the top spiritual leaders in the world. Well, most of them, not all of them. I mean, there's some out there that we haven't met, but he's taken the best of the best and he's found the common denominators, the level ground through all the religions, and he's put it together. And now he's going to share it with you. I'm going to be a part of this program too. There's going to be guest speakers on. It's not all going to be webinars like tonight. It's not going to all be on your computer either. You're going to be able to call in. You're going to be able to call in from your car or from your office or from your home, sitting in your den with your feet up. And you're going to be able to listen to these lessons every month. It will be anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. And in between, we might throw some different articles your way and some different educational information, things that are relevant to you. We're taking the best of the best information, not censoring. We don't censor information. We're going to present everything to you, but you're going to be able to use your own mind and figure out what's best for you, what works for you, and what you could take going forward. And I want to talk about that for a quick minute before we go tonight. It's really important that you understand it's one thing to have education and knowledge, but it's another to take it and use it. Take it to the next step. When you learn something, take an idea, program it into your subconscious as part of you, and make it work for you. That's the beauty of the Magnificent Pathways series. Every month you're going to have that support mechanism. Every month you're going to learn about new books. Every month you're going to learn about famous speakers and artists and philosophers. It's like taking a graduate level education, but the best of it, and encapsulating it in a way where, you know, education seems like this. It's huge. We can't even comprehend everything out there. We take it, we do this. But wait, there's even more to this. Not only are you going to learn all about the philosophers, the artists, the inventors, the theologians, the religious leaders, the universe, philosophy. Not only that, there's more. Howard is going to add in lessons on psychic ability, astrology, numerology, tarot cards. I don't know a lot about this stuff personally. That stuff I don't know as much about. I'm a personal development expert, not that stuff. That's a little different for me. He's going to go into some very spiritual, high-level topics to help you develop your higher self, to become more self-actualized, to reach a different level, both mentally and physically, and even spiritually. I cannot advise you enough to go to the web address www.fromhoward.com/pathways right now, today, and take a trial. Try it out for 30 days. It's $37 a month. Try it out for 1 month. You'll love it. And every month you're going to get spoon-fed, and I say that just loosely, spoon-fed, the right information at the right time. It's going to be an awesome program. What you heard tonight is just a small sampling. It's the baby stuff. We're going to take you to the next level. This program might be one of the most important programs I've ever personally worked on. And I've worked with the best of the best authors and speakers, celebrities. I've worked with them. I've done it. I've been down this path. And I know what works and what doesn't work, and the kind of information that's worth putting in your mind. Because the most important thing is your mind and what goes in here and what you feed it. How would you like to know the best about the best books and the best authors and the best philosophers and the best poets and the best musicians and the best artists, the best educators, learning the best of the top subjects, what's relevant to you? If this sounds remotely interesting to you, even remotely, a smidgen, just a smidgen, it's your instinct telling you something. Your instinct is telling you that this is right for you. It's right for you to try it. Follow your instinct. Follow your gut. Try it out for 30 days. See how you like it. Go to www.fromhoward.com/pathways. Pathways with an S. www.fromhoward.com/pathways. Try the program out for a month. You are going to absolutely love it. And on that note, I just want to say goodnight to everybody and have a pleasant day. Take care.